Teresa M. Kreischer. It used to be Blacha. I come from what they call East Germany or Poland. My mother died when I was 2 years old, so I never met my mother. I lived with my 2 years with my grandmother, 2 years with my father. It wasn't being split up like this. It wasn't the best for a young girl. In 1939, the war broke out, and my father worked on a railroad, and he somehow, I don't know why, but he had to leave the city. And so he picked up the family, and we took a train, not even a train, where they got animals and stuff. What would you call?
Cargo train?
Yeah, the people were just put
in those
in
seats.
yeah. And we went into Poland, and then coming back after things settled down, coming back, we had to walk all the way back home again. I remember my father buying one of those little wooden carts to put our belongings in, and I was the youngest, so I had the privilege to get into it. We got home, and that was 39. 45, the real war broke out, and I was I lived with my grandmother at the time, and my sister. We exchanged with my sister. Every year, somebody else would live with the family. So I moved to my grandmother, and she. Then the war really broke out, and I was 13, and my aunt arranged with the military, because she worked for the city hall, to take me out at that city, because it was very dangerous for young girls to be left. My grandmother didn't want to go out. My grandmother didn't want to get out, and so I had to do it as a 13 and a half year old girl, and get out of Poland. And from there I went to Czechoslovakia, and I stayed there a couple months, and then the Czech people decided that all the refugees had to get out, so I had to keep moving again. They put us in a refugee camp, we ended up in Austria, in Braunau in Austria, and because I was single and a child, they put me with a family, and it was funny. I had made some friends, and they decided for me to go to Braunau, where Hitler was born, because there were a lot of refugee camps, and she thought maybe I'm going to meet somebody that I know. And so we took the train, I think, or the bus to Braunau, and in the city, where the city hall is, that they usually have like black boards are hanging everywhere, looking for so and so, looking for so and so. So that lady left me. The, the lady left me alone there, and I got a little nervous how I gonna go back, find how I gonna get home again. Go back to where I came from. And she introduced me to a lady, and she says, oh, she's in a refugee camp, and we talked about where I came from, and she said, oh, I know you aunt, I know she's in another refugee camp, and that's how I met my aunt and my cousin. And my grandmother came out. She had to come out also because of it was a war zone. And and that's how I met my grandmother again and my family. After that, after Austria, we had to go back. We had to leave Austria, and we had to go to Germany. And we it's funny, I'm laughing, but it wasn't funny. We had a 2-bedroom, not even a bedroom, it was a schoolhouse. We had 2 rooms with 3 families living in that two rooms. And I remember we had a little stove in the kitchen, which you could only cook one meal. One pot just went in. It was like a tall little stove, kept the food a little warm on the top, only for one. And so it was tough for my grandmother and for the other people. It had to be very organized. Everybody had to keep the little corner clean, not the room, the corners. So it was a tough time. Oh, at Edmund, after 18, when I got to 18, I could work for the Americans. And that's when I met Edmund. Lived in a hotel that I thought he was German because he lived on the first floor, and only civilian could live there, so I didn't know that he was in the military at all when I met him. We met I worked as a desk clerk in a hotel, and accidentally they they transport me to another hotel, and that was where Edmund was, because I worked in another place, and it was maybe my luck that things sometimes in life you never know what's going to happen. But that's when I met Edmund, and he can tell you the rest. Oh. I remember the girls usually had a little room upstairs where we had lunch, and it was Saturday. And I heard already rumors that there was somebody interested in me, So I better not say it what I said, but that's okay. Somebody said, oh, there he is, he's coming now. And I looked at him, and I didn't think he was a military guy. I thought he was somebody else. Oh yeah, no, yeah, he came up, he came, and he had, in Germany, they call it Rollmops, which is a herring wrapped up with a pickle, and so he came up, and he says, oh, I thought you girls would enjoy for lunch having that herring. And I hate herring, but I acted like I like like I like it, you know. And then he says, "No, yeah, after you finished, you know your job and or whatever your hours, come in my room and I going to open up a bottle of wine." No, yeah. The girl that's supposed to come down in with me, she says because she had a room upstairs, so she came down and she said, "I'll be right down. I just go and get washed up and changed." And I left the door open like a good girl. Left the door open and we started talking and then it was more interesting because he came from Germany. That girl never did show up. I knew she wouldn't. I don't know why I bought the joke. So so I left, and then we made a date. Yes, we had our first date, and we arranged. I knew the town pretty well, and in which restaurant it's gonna be. So I got ready. I think I even walked to that hotel, to that place, to the restaurant. I'm waiting outside, I'm waiting, and no Edmund. So I said, he let me down again, he let me down. So I called the hotel and see if he was there, You see, in Germany, around this time, the girls didn't go into a restaurant by themselves without a gentleman. It wasn't just, you got a bad name if you did it, So he called, I called, and then he says, take a taxi and come in. So first meal, food was very bad at the time in Germany. So I ordered Wiener Schnitzel. I don't know if you heard about it. But there were two of them, and my stomach wasn't used to eating rich food. So I'm surprised he stayed with me because first thing I did is I thought tomorrow a lunch. So I asked him to if I can wrap it up because Germans at the time there was no doggy bag. There was no doggy bag. So I wrapped it up in a paper napkin and put it into Edmund's uniform pocket. So you can imagine what happened with all the grease on the outside. So I was really surprised. Either he thought I was frugal or that maybe I was the right girl for him. Mm-hmm. And from then on, it just developed more and more. My grandmother, because my grandmother always said, don't bring me an American, because they didn't have the best reputation with girls. Either they were married or they, used girls, and then naturally a baby ended up, and so she didn't think. But once she met Edmund, he was German. That was the main thing, same nationality than myself. That was when when I went with the soldiers, when they picked me up, I went with a caravan or whatever you call it, a whole military. And my aunt followed, but she followed much later. So I remember I was 7 o'clock at night, and they dropped me off on the corner, and my aunt said, "No, yeah, go to the Red Cross." but that was a little town. There was no Red Cross. There was nothing that I could really go to, you know. So I saw a restaurant, and so I went in there and asked if I can, if they can help me stay overnight somewhere, you know. So they kept me, but they couldn't keep me because they needed a room for rent, for visitors or something. So I stayed with the maid. I remember that was one room. She lived in one room with the mother, and we practically three slept in one bed. And they had little goats in that living room, living with us. And I stayed with them because there was no Red Cross place that I could go to. And then when my aunt came, because she came because of the business, she came from Poland and tried to pick me up and take me to with her. And the people I stayed with, they said, keep her here. And if after the war, you know where she is, you can pick her up again. And I'm glad I didn't go with her because my aunt and two other girlfriends got pregnant by Russians. I probably would have been one. Yeah, I would have been another one of them. It's very hard. I mean, for a 13-year-old, what do they know about the war? You know. The only thing I remember is that my aunt went first with my cousin because they got them out of the city first, and I remember that there was a Jewish thing. I mean, they came marching through our town, which we didn't even know there was a camp, Jewish camp. Nobody knew. But we seen it when we went to Dachau, you know, where they had the camps. We saw the map, our city, which they had, marched them. I don't know what happened after that. Oh, my father, because of the situation that my mother died so early, we shared my father with my sister. 2 years I stayed with her, 2 years my sister. So I never seen my father since 1943. I never, he passed away and never had a chance to see him again. Now you make me cry. It's life. Could write a book. Naja, first impression when I got off the boat, I was ready to take the next boat back to Germany because Germany was at that time very clean. Very, everything was neat and clean and organized and everything else. So, and when I saw New York, the section in New York, how sloppy and dirty and filthy and around that ship area was, that we were not used to it. Ooh. United States, I think in Maryland. Mm-hmm. Maryland, that's where your father was born. Mm-hmm. So, and then we just kept moving, and Edmund can tell you more about it, the section. We were in Alabama, Maryland, Philadelphia. So
Canada.
Yeah, that is in the 60s, 1960. Now for visit, I mean, I got used to, you know. It, I mean, I couldn't compare New York with United States. I mean, that's a completely, and it's a section where, where you they really, it's a business district. You know, it's not the best class area.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Can we take
Thank you.
a break?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
My name is Edmund Kreischer, and I was born in Ludwigshafen, Germany, on the 18th of April in 1920. My folks decided to come to the United States in 1925, and we left Germany in September. I don't know the exact date, but we came back to, we got to the United States on the ship, the United States it was called. And I think I was probably only here a few days, and I started school. And I was very fortunate to have a school teacher who was Swedish, and she spoke a little bit of German, and she took care of her class and took care of me too. She sat me in the back of the school. Yes, the teacher's name I don't remember quite, but I think it was, she was Swedish, and my father had her as a school teacher in the night classes, because all the immigrants had to go to school at night to learn English. The important thing is that she could speak a little bit of German, and she took care of, she was a, what we call a pre-kindergarten teacher. She had a regular class, and she would come up in the back of the class and give me write a name on the blackboard and tell me what it was in English, and then tell me what it was in German, and I had a box of letters that I would pick the letters out and spell the name of that, whether it was English or German. Well, the thing was that when I came, I had a Dutch boy haircut. I was a blonde. I was a towhead, what they call towheads. And I had a Dutch cut. And my father decided to cut my hair one night. Did a bad job, and I ended up the next day coming to school with a baldy sour, which was like a short haircut. But with this teacher teaching me how to spell the words with the letters out of the box, in about 3 or 4 weeks I was running with the gang. And that was my introduction to the United States. Well, the only experience I know about Ellis Island is what they told me, what my parents told me about what happened at Ellis Island. I don't remember that. Well, they told me about my sister, Adelaide. She got lice on the boat, and so they kept her at Ellis Island for a couple of days until they get the lice problem fixed. Well, the other story about coming to the United States was as we entered the United States, we came through Ellis Island, and then from Ellis Island we came to New York proper. And one of the things that my father told me, and my mother told me the same thing, is they had my sister in a baby carriage, and the wheel kept falling off the baby carriage. And my dad was getting a little frustrated because of that. And he kept putting the wheel back, and there was what they called a fruit stand. The fellow that had the fruit stand saw my father running after the wheel all the time, and he came over and started talking to him in English, I guess, and then found out that my father spoke German. And the thing that was really amazing was that this fellow was a singer in the chorus that my father sang in Germany. And once they started communicating, he gave my father a whole bag full of fruit. And the other thing that happened was that in those days they used to be able to go from New York to Fall River and from New York to Providence by the Fall River line. It was an overnight boat trip from New York to Providence. And of course we got on the wrong boat. We got on the Fall River boat, and the minister who was supposed to meet us in Providence, of course, got confused when we weren't on the ship, so it took him a couple of hours to try to locate it. That's what I was told, that they finally located us, and we came into Pawtucket that time. I can remember the first time we lived in the third floor of a house on York Avenue, and the people that owned that house, they still live there, at least the children live there, by the name of Cloutier. They were French Canadian. He was a carpenter, and we lived in that third floor, and that's where Adley got real sick. I don't know what happened. He almost died. And after a couple of weeks, my dad got a job, and my dad always had a job. He always had to work to bring food on the table. All during those were the Depression years. That was the years that Roosevelt was president after Hoover, and then of course Truman took over from President Roosevelt. But all during the Depression years, my dad always had to work and kept food on the table, as I said. I finished grammar school and went to junior high school on Newport Avenue, Goff Junior High School on Newport Avenue. I think I was the class that I was with was in the first class that went to that school. We spent 3 years in the 7th, 8th, and 9th grade there, and then from there I went to the Pawtucket High School, which is called Tolman now, I think. It's 10th, 11th, and 12th grades were the 3 grades that we had. And from there I went to URI, when it was still the Rhode Island College. It wasn't the University of Rhode Island. And graduated from there in 1948, and got my commission in the Army from ROTC, and went to Europe. That's about my introduction into my adult years. Well, when I went, I was supposed to have gone to Korea, but instead of going to Korea, I got shipped to Europe. And while I was in Europe, I met your mother. I stayed at a hotel in Bad Nauheim in Germany. I met your mother there. She was working at the desk, and she was a blonde and blue-eyed, typical what you think a German should look like. And she interested me, of course. And we started dating. How did I know I wanted to marry over? Oh, I liked the way she took things in stride. She was pretty good at managing stuff, and well, how do you know? I don't know. It's just one of those things that that happened. We finally got married. It was the 29th of December, 1954. I got married in Germany in what they call the Standesamt, which is it's like a court. You get married. It's what they call a civil ceremony. It's not a church ceremony. The Germans do the same thing. They get married by the court, and then they go, if they're religious, they go to a church wedding after. Our church wedding didn't take place until we came to the United States. We came over on the United States, which was a kind of a luxury liner. It wasn't. It was a troop ship, but they had put us in a cabin of four men in one cabin, and the wives of those four men were in another cabin. That's how we got on to the United States. My first date?
Oh, my God.
Well, that was in Bad Nauheim.
Okay.
Oh, that was the time that she wrapped that schnitzel up in my uniform pocket and put a big oil spot out of my uniform. Because he didn't tell me that German girls didn't go into a restaurant by themselves. They were always accompanied by either another girl or another guy. So this one restaurant that I used to go to, I invited her out. I said I'd meet her there, and when I got to that restaurant, I went inside and sat down at a table and waited for her, and she never showed up. So I thought, well, I guess I got stood up again. So I found out that she was still back at the hotel, and I found out that this business of the girls not going to the restaurant by themselves caused her not to show up. So I had to go and get her and bring her back. And these were the times when the Germans weren't just getting back on their feet again. And the mark, right now the Germans are dealing on the euro, but now when I was there, it was all, a dollar was worth $4 and 4 marks and 20 pennies. So you got 4 times as much for your dollar as you do now. Now the dollar's way down. But anyway, she got a pretty good sized schnitzel. She couldn't eat it all, so she wrapped it up in a napkin and put it in my uniform. And I had a spot about the size of a T-bone steak in my pocket. I had to get that cleaned up anyway. We went. I guess we left Germany. Well, after we got married, it was already in the new year, and when we landed in New York, your mother wasn't too impressed with the New York City, the way it was kind of a mess, but she finally get used to it and come home. Came back to the Pawtucket. She stayed in Pawtucket for a while. Oh, that's a story she tells. That's a figment of her imagination. Because I helped fabricate that story too, where I told her that whenever they asked that question, how I met your mother, I told them I met her. I would throw this roll. It's called a roll mops. It's a rolled piece of herring, and it's stuffed with pickles and stuff in it. And I said I put it on a string and threw it out of my hotel window and pulled it back in, and I found out Racy was there. That's the story that's we fabricated anyway. But other than that, we stayed in that. We came. I think we moved from Bad Nauheim. We moved to Frankfurt. Finally came to Frankfurt before we went home. Because in those days, they didn't fly you home like they do now. I was stationed in Frankfurt for a little while, and then I got my authorization to get married, and we left Frankfurt by train to Bremerhaven, which is the port in North Germany, and that's where we got out of the United States and sailed to the United States. We're going to talk about Kenneth, who was one of the first child that we had.
He was the firstborn.
He was the firstborn, and he got the reputation of being Jesu Bambino.
That means the holy child. The holy child. And
Kenneth wasn't
he was
any
a
problem
good,
child,
no
no.
problem. The only thing I remember one day that Edmund was already in Korea, and Oma comes all excited coming into the kitchen, and she says, "You should go and see what he did to my wall in your bedroom, So I thought, oh my gosh, what could he have done? So so I went to check, and he took my lipstick and painted the whole wall with that lipstick all over. Luckily, it wasn't the wall were just in the
There's no wallpaper yet.
no wallpaper, nothing. But I tell you, I never heard the end of it. And then she insisted I take the kids to church. And you take a 3-month-old baby and a 2-year-old kid to church. Now, yeah, I only did it once. And then Opa had to stay with him and do some babysitting. But otherwise he was, as a little fellow, he was always no problem. When he got older, that's when the problem started, because he had the Wanderlust, like Elizabeth. You know what Wanderlust means? Traveling, and he would go into places, especially skiing,
Oh, that's
And-
later
and
on
the-
in life, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he got to be
a teenager.
a teenager.
Yeah.
He was a very good skier.
And promised he gonna call, and we never heard from him.
Yeah, he was always.
We always worried about him. And then he would come one day
He
and
would
he
do
says,
the things
"Oh,
that you weren't supposed to do, like
Yeah.
ski on the glacier.
And then he would on the autobahn, you know, the autobahn it's the highway, freeway, and he would go and get a ride, and he would say somebody picked him up with a Mercedes, an elderly couple with a little dog on the lap and everything. And if you traveled in Europe, you know how fast they go. Him and his buddy Morgan, Tom Morgan, that we knew Canadian, you know, that he traveled together. They traveled together. They both were on the knees praying that they got home okay, because they would go, you know, like 200 kilometers, you know, an hour. And
Well, there was a couple of stories. One about you, and he went to the junior prom, and you decided to make a flower for him.
he had a date. He had a date.
He had a date.
And you know, the flower that only lasts one day,
Amarillo, baby. I don't know
or something.
what
They only last one day, and then they. So I made him a nice corsage, you know, for the girl to wear. The next morning, I look in the refrigerator, and it's collapsed. So I had to go to the flower shop and get a normal one, regular one. But I think that's the only prom that I remember that he wasn't dating too much, your father.
No, he was not. No.
No.
He spent most of his time studying.
And Kenneth would go to bed at 10 o'clock, but not regular really in bed. He would go and lay across the bed. And then 1 o'clock he would wake up and he would study. He would never really, you know.
He did that all. He did that all through his college years too. I understand.
One thing I have to say, Kenny was very neat. When I went into his room, I didn't have to do anything except dust. There was every day. There was everything was picked up. Everything was always clean. He was always clean. So that's my boy. You move on.
He still is a boy.
So
Then comes Heidi.
our Heidi, I would say I could trust Heidi.
Oh,
When
yeah.
Heidi said she's gonna come at 10 o'clock, she'd be home at 10 o'clock, she was home at 10 o'clock. She was going with Ray already, you know. And she really had to go to the caserne where he lived. And she would, she always found a ride to come home. But she was always on time, except once that she was going with a girlfriend across the street from us. And the girl had an accident. And when an hour later, then I knew something wasn't right. So Heidi probably it wasn't that bad either. Not that
Wow.
because she had the Ray right away. She was a young girl.
Wow. There's one story about Heidi when she talked the school bus driver to take her over to a mall.
They convinced that the bus driver. She took courses hairdressing, but they had to go in town, out of the school area with a school bus, and she convinced the bus driver to drop them off at the shopping mall. And that stupid nut did. And that came because, they get, they have to report to school when they're there and when they leave and so forth. And I don't know how he probably waited for them. So he got fired. That poor guy got fired. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Oh yeah,
oh
well,
my,
she went
that's
when
when
Spain.
she went to Spain.
Went to Mallorca. Came back.
That was another one. She would, we would call because Kenny was leaving for college, and Kenny was leaving. So I said to Edmund, she has to come home. It was at the same time when the passport expired.
Well, her passport was expiring.
Expiring. Yes. So she says, "Oh, if I go to Turkey, I can get a ride. When I go to Turkey, I can get a ride. I can get a ride from over there quicker than from Germany or from where she was, Spain. And so Edmund said, "No way, I want you, your brother is leaving, your passport expires, you got to come home." Yeah, she came home. She did come home. And then she opened the door and she says, "Here I am." And I looked at her, out of that suitcase, the brass was hanging out, her underwear hanging out. She just shoved it in, and the stuff got caught. And I said, "Heidi, what happened to your hair?" She said, "Spanish sun." And what did she say? Spanish. The Spanish sun. In lemon juice. That's what she said. In lemon juice. And I said, "No, she must think I'm stupid or something." So she bleached her hair, not telling us. But that was, I couldn't believe it.
I can remember when they left from Mallorca.
Oh my gosh.
On the train, there was her and Natalie.
A brother.
And a brother, Natalie's brother.
And a dog
and a
like
dog.
ours. Like ours.
He got out of the train in Heidelberg, and I thought to myself, why did I ever allow them to go to Mallorca?
They were all by themselves the whole time. Kathy must have been, Heidi must have been what, in around this time,
She was
15 or
still in
something.
high school, yeah.
Yeah, and the father traveled, and then we had all the fun. They used to go in the bar, where the guys were, and they were having yippee, That's how. Sometimes, Europe. That's Europe. That the people travel like this. So.
Kathy, I don't know about Kathy. She was the big cheerleader.
And that's all you can say? How about how many cars did she?
Oh yeah,
The car, Opa's car was in the lot. She was in the parked where you parked, and she didn't look if there was a car. She crashed right into Opa's car on the same property. She had few things. Nothing bad.
Nothing big with her.
No. The only thing I didn't like that she worked with there with in what you call it, a store where you can buy knickknacks, and I think they were selling those stupid pipes, you know.
The drug pipes.
So so I knew there was going on if they sell that stuff.
Yeah, that's what she was living up on the Cape by herself, and we didn't like that.
But
Then she met Timothy.
yeah, not right away. She went to cheerleading, and Edmund says, I remember Edmund says, he went to bed, and he says, I want you to be home by 10 o'clock, okay? And the phone rings. And she says, oh, I'm just here on the corner where McDonald's is. You know, the donut shop, the McDonald's donut shop. And she says, I'll be right home, and I tell you, I was praying that Opa doesn't wake up, because it was 11 and she wasn't home. So he finally woke up. She said, is Kathy home? She says, no. I said, no, but she's here, she's coming. So he gave me such a hard time. I said, okay, from now on, it's your baby. So I gave the job to him. And him, instead of saying 10 o'clock, he gave it 11 o'clock.
No, we never had a lot of the problems.
Oh, not
other
what they
people
have today. Jesus.
I can remember one time
yeah.
we had him home when we were having a Christmas party,
Oh my gosh.
and the Germans have a tradition of where they heat up the
Hadram. Like Hadram.
yeah, they do, they heat
And
that
it
up.
wouldn't burn, it's supposed to burn that alcohol off, it wouldn't. So Ray came with the bottle, rum, but instead putting it, he poured it in that bowl, and that fire went into the bottle, and poof, and almost, the crotch from Ray. That's why Heidi blames. That's why Heidi blames Ray that she couldn't have any babies, because boy, that was scary. I mean, here you have a whole table full with people, and the fire goes just poof out of the bottle,
Yeah, that was the funny one with Ray. His car.
Hallelujah, hallelujah,
His car hung
hallelujah.
together with religious stickers. That's, I can remember that.
And she said, "Oh, there's nothing, no, nothing." Until we had the bench over there, what you see on the patio. He's sitting here, and we come up, and your mother is laying on his, and he's rubbing his feet, rubbing her feet, And I said, "Edmund, did you see what I saw?" And so then we knew already it's more than just
friendship.
friendship.
The first reaction I saw of Elizabeth was at the Winyans, in Boston.
She had dark hair, it extends up.
Yeah.
That was also dark, naturally dark hair. I thought all my grandchildren going to be blue eye and blonde. Something else when those two. That's something that I could never understand, those two. They used to come and visit me.
And
They
then
didn't even say hi. They went into the door,
into the
living room, and we didn't see them until, or then food, oh my God, she's still, the carrots and like rabbits.
Well, with food is no problem with Greg.
No, not, I mean before when they were little. My
when they were little,
God,
yeah, yeah.
That's all they ate is carrots, raw carrots. And they used to play, and then dad or mom said, okay, we're leaving. So they quickly picked up what they had and out at the door. And I said, wait a minute, you come back and you say goodbye to Opa and Oma. Every time. You were very close when you were young. Michael and Matthew.
Oh, I remember when
Joined.
they were born because we were out there. The first one was Michael. He was the first one that was born, and then a few minutes later, Matthew was born, and we stayed there. We went there
Quite a while, yeah. Yeah, because Heidi had cesarean, so somebody had to,
Not
you
only
know.
that, she got leukemia right after that too.
So we had to take care of the children and the parents, and so it was tough year for us. But they were cute. They were cute.
Yeah, we
almost,
were in
they were
Europe.
identical too, you know.
Yeah.
So that made it more interesting when you took them somewhere. You know, people always say, oh, look at the two little ones, and Heidi always dressed them up. You see them on the pictures. Yeah, they were always dressed up. Yeah, you little redhead. I said,
Oh, I remember you coming out of the delivery room with a cap,
Little cap on,
with a
yeah,
hat rather,
yeah.
not a cap, but a
I
hat.
knitted
Yeah.
hat.
Looking all around like.
Oh yeah, like what? Where am I? Where am I? The eyes going backwards. And Greg, I mean Chris. What can I say about Chris?
Oh, I remember Chris when he was small. He always liked to dress up.
Oh
He
yeah,
always liked to have a
suit
or something.
and
Yeah.
tie, and
Now
always.
and now you can't get a shirt out of him.
Yeah, he wanted to be always dolled up.
The herring and the pickle.
Yeah.
Let's get the
The
I
herring
told- I
wrapped with a
told him-
pickle
I
because
told him, but maybe she wants to hear it from you. How you caught me.
He said that you guys made up the story.
Oh no,
I never
who
made.
said it?
I did. I never really threw roll-em-ups out the window like I told.
Not under the window, but you came up with a dish
Oh, you're talking about
when we were.
that. That's nothing to do with the story that we told.
What story?
We've always told about the story that I had a roll-em-ups on a string.
Oh no, yeah,
and
that's
I threw it
a
out the
joke.
window. Yeah,
That's a joke.
and when I
That
dragged
almost
it in,
looked like it. You know, he tried to catch me. You know, caught me. So that I'm sorry. Misunderstanding.
And Opa, what year were you married?
I was married in 1953. 1953. The end of 1953.
Which
December
day?
the 29th.
Yeah, that's a
Wow.
good question. We always say wrong date, the wrong years.
Well, we got married in
53.
53, and you add 47 years to 53. That's 47. That's 2000. Year 2000. 47.
Is it
And
easier?
add 8 more years to that. Wouldn't that be right? The final number would be
Would it be?
48 and 8, 56.
No.
Good job.
Is it correct? 56?
Yes.
I thought it was going to be 55.
Lifetime memories.
Yeah.
Naja, think before you make the wrong decisions. That's think ahead of time. That's the main thing. The pros is the pros and the
Cons.
Pros and the cons.
yeah.
Well,
But you
I
don't
tell
make
you what.
the wrong decision.
I find that as I get older, I get slower. I talk slower. I don't talk as much as I used to. I guess that's part of getting old.
Any advice for us, young people?
Don't get old.
Ah.
Don't get
Oh
old.
no, yeah, today they say you're gonna live over 100, so we don't have to worry about it. We don't know what's coming. A lot of things.
Well, no, but you should keep in contact with what's going on in the world.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
Oh, we joined the family we've been given because we never had as much trouble with them. They're not in constant turmoil like some families are.
Some families, you know, this nobody is involved with as far as we know, with dope and alcohol and all that kind of things, which it's clear head. You got a clear head. I mean, I'm not against, but what are you looking at, Edmund?
Nothing. I
Here, honey.
I just saw the top of the windshield. It looked to me like, oh, did you have that windshield replaced?
Edmund, it's tape, honey. Edmund.
I know. I just
Come on,
wondering.
get that.
They can cut that out.
No, I'm
Edit
just
the
saying
tape.
they want to quit. We have to get ready.
I'm going to say goodbye.
And me too. And I love you both.
Yeah,
And all
right,
of us.
right.
All of you. No, there's
We hope that
nobody
we hope
better
that
than
you
the
can
other.
film us again next year. Maybe I'll get my dates straight.